everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture, and Season 1 is almost upon us. We are so close. I can see it in the distance. Now obviously we've had trailers and we've had all of this time to gather some information, and it now allows us to say, we have a theory. I got a theory, it could be bunnies. Bunnies aren't just cute like everybody supposes. Our theory revolves around the mystery of Ruby Sunday. Now obviously, Ruby's history, her parentage is going to be at the heart of Season 1, and presumably we are going to get at least some answers surrounding this big question in the first 8 episodes. It may even extend into Season 2, but we will at least get some answers in Season 1. Now, often the case with mysteries like this in television, in film, is that the reveal often involves somebody we've already met. So our theory is, drumroll please, Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter, is involved somehow with the mystery of Ruby Sunday, and quite possibly might make a return in Season 1. I am going to explain why we think this. Before I do though, make sure that if you haven't already, that you've hit the subscribe button. We're going to have so much stuff coming out in the upcoming weeks that you don't want to miss it because you didn't press subscribe or the little notification bell. So Susan was the first ever Doctor Who companion, played by Carol Ann Ford. She was in the very first episode of Doctor Who back in 1963 and travelled with the first Doctor and then departed in 1964. She is also the Doctor's granddaughter. So she is a very important figure within the history of the show, and it kind of would be fitting somehow for her to make a return, especially when you consider that this new season has been labelled Season 1, and the very first season of Doctor Who back in 1963 was also called Season 1. So it has a nice synergy about it. It would be very, very fitting for her to return this season. Now, a lot of this theory hinges on this recurring mystery character played by Susan Twist. So first of all, she appeared in Wild Blue Yonder playing Mrs. Merridew, and then she also popped up in the church on Ruby Road as a woman in a pub who was asking Ruby's band to play a particular song, and we know that she will have more appearances in Season 1. So the big question is, who is she? Well, what if she is Susan Foreman? And what if she's actually Ruby's mother? So first of all, I don't know if this is the case or not, but I wouldn't put it past Russell T Davies. The actress playing all these characters is literally called Susan Twist. Russell T Davies is the kind of cheeky chappy who would cast someone based solely on their name. You know, and it would be very fitting for an actress named Susan Twist to be playing a twist surrounding the character of Susan. I wouldn't put it past him. Stranger things have happened. Also, because she's playing so many different characters, I mean, we keep referring to her as Susan Twist. It's not very often that you refer to characters by their actor's name. You know, you refer to the character. But because Susan Twist is playing such different characters across every episode or across multiple episodes, and also they're not particularly memorable characters, you know, they're quite background characters, we just keep calling Susan Twist. So maybe this has been done on purpose. But while we are on the topic of Russell T Davies, back in January 2023, he actually did tease something about Susan Foreman. So there was an Instagram post with a clip of Susan's departure, and he commented, "Whatever happened to her?" on that post. Look, it could mean nothing. He could have just been teasing. He could have just, you know, been getting in on the fun. On the other hand, he could have actually been hinting about something he knew that we didn't, which was, I actually do know what happened with her. And also, let's not forget, Russell T Davies is a huge Doctor Who fan, so he probably wants answers as to what happened to Susan just as much as we do. And he's actually in a position where he can give an answer to that question, create an answer to that question. Then we have Carol Ann Ford herself. She has said in the past that she'd love to return to Doctor Who. In fact, she was actually in attendance at the premiere for The Star Beast back in November last year. Obviously that doesn't actually mean anything because Nicola Bryant was also at the premiere, and I don't think Perry is going to be returning anytime soon. I mean, you know, anything can happen, but when you combine the fact that these people are still being invited to these events and being included in all of the hype surrounding the new show, the new season, there could be more method to this seeming madness. Also, a lot of people did point out that when Tales of the TARDIS aired, Carol Ann Ford, or Susan, was one of the few people not to have an episode. Of all the characters for people to expect to have had their own little tale of the TARDIS, Susan seemed like an obvious choice, and she was not there. Originally, you might have said, well, you can't because William Hartnell is no longer with us, so that wouldn't have worked. But that means nothing, because David Bradley has been playing the First Doctor for a long time at this point. That's one of the characters it really did make sense to have, and so it seemed questionable as to why she wasn't there. Well, maybe that's because she was already involved. Maybe Russell had other plans for her character, and so she wasn't involved in Tales of the TARDIS because she had a bigger role to play in the main show itself. Let's not forget that season 1 was filmed by the time Tales of the TARDIS came around to being shot. Tales of the TARDIS was a very last-minute thing. Also, I've just thought, maybe this has more connection to our theory that we were talking about the other day with regards to the memory TARDIS seemingly appearing in season 1. Remember we said that Tales of the TARDIS came after season 1, so the memory TARDIS, presumably, if it's in season 1, was created for the show itself and then just repurposed for Tales of the TARDIS. So maybe Susan's Tale of the TARDIS is in the show itself. There is one thing, though, that I would like to make sure does happen, especially if the whole Susan twist element of this theory is correct, is that I would still like to see Carol Ann Ford return as Susan. I've said this before because people always say to me, what would you do if River Song returned but played by someone else? I would rather we did not have River Song return than have her played by someone other than Alex Kingston. Now that's a little bit different because how much I love the character, but in terms of Susan returning, if we are going to have Susan returning and she has changed appearance, I would like at least a scene where we can have Carol Ann Ford passing on the baton, or acknowledging the fact that she is Susan, and then perhaps see that regeneration, like when we in the Night of the Doctor, when we saw Paul McGann regenerate into the War Doctor. So we then had a little bit of closure because we had an answer to a long-standing question. Now, in universe, there might be some more clues. So the name S-Triad has been spotted on screen at Unit HQ in one of the trailers. It's in the shot where the TARDIS is being scanned and it's on the screen. We're the kind of people that zoom in and look at all those details. Now, it's widely believed that this character, S-Triad, is another one of Susan Twist's characters, Susan Triad, who is the head of Triad Technology, which was mentioned in The Giggle. We know Unit are using Triad Technology. Mel mentioned it. So we've already had some breadcrumbs dropped with regards to Triad Technologies. Also, S-Triad, has anyone else noticed? It's an anagram of TARDIS. And who originally claimed to have invented the TARDIS acronym? Well, there you go, you guessed it.
Well, I made up the name TARDIS from the initials, time and relative dimension in space.
So we did mention earlier that Susan Twist is set to have more appearances in season 1. That's not just speculation. So we've had the cast list revealed for The Devil's Cord, and it reveals that she will be in this episode and she'll be playing a different character to the previous ones we've seen, just named T-Lady. Interestingly, for the cast list for Space Babies, Susan Twist doesn't appear. So whether that means she's in the episode and they're trying to keep her appearance in that particular story secret, or more likely she's not appearing in every single episode of season 1. Then the question is, why not? So another theory that we do have about Susan Twist's characters is that they only appear in Earth-based stories, or at least stories that have Earth featured in them. So think back, you've got 1600s England in Wild Blue Yonder, and then you've got modern day London in The Church on Ruby Road, and then you've got Abbey Road Studios in the 1960s in The Devil's Court. Now, the reason for this could again link back to Susan Foreman. She was left behind by the First Doctor on Earth. So if then she did go on to become Susan Twist, then that could explain why she only appears in Earth locations, because she's stuck on Earth. The only issue with this being that the Doctor actually left Susan in the 2160s, so quite a long way in the future, but I'm pretty sure that there could be some sort of mechanism created which allows her to travel through time but not through space. So she's still stuck on Earth, but she can travel through all different periods of time on Earth. Also, the 2160s, who's to know what sort of technology has been created in the 2160s? Let's not forget, people, this is Doctor Who. All you have to do is invent some sci-fi technobabble, and you can do literally anything you want. So if we do assume that these characters that Susan Twist is playing is Susan Foreman, let's not forget that when the Doctor did leave her behind, he left her with a TARDIS key. Now, she did drop that key on the ground and walk away from it when the Doctor dematerialised, but, I mean, we've all thrown something in like an act of rebellion or to make a point and then awkwardly had to go and pick it up because you can't leave that there. It's reasonable to assume that, yes, she drops it on the floor, but she could have easily just turned around and picked it back up again once she'd realised that, I probably should keep that. Now, we did see in the time of the Doctor that a TARDIS key can actually summon the TARDIS, so maybe that is why the Doctor keeps ending up near her, because she has a key and so the TARDIS is drawn to that key. Or even better, what if she is using the key to somehow try and track the Doctor and track the TARDIS to try and make contact? Okay, and now let's circle this back to the Ruby's mother element of this theory. Now, if Susan is Ruby's mother, it would explain why the Doctor didn't try and stop the hooded figure from walking away when he travelled back in time in the church on Ruby Road. Time Lords can sense each other, remember? So perhaps if it was Susan, then he could sense that it was, if not Susan, at least another Time Lord, and perhaps knew that now wasn't the time to interfere, and that the time would present itself at some point in the future. Or maybe even Susan left Ruby there on purpose to try and lure the Doctor out, to try and draw the Doctor's attention. Now, Susan having kids is not completely out of the realm of possibility. The Doctor actually left her because she'd fallen in love with a man named David, and in the extended media, her and David, they have a son called Alex, and she actually sent a hypercube to the Doctor to inform him about the new addition to her family. So this could be another instance like the Starbeast, where Russell T Davies has kind of adapted extended media story into the main show itself. Obviously, we could be completely barking up the wrong tree here. We could be completely way off the mark. But with the number of crazy comebacks that the show has had in just the last year alone, there's more of a chance of this being likely than ever before. I mean, if you had told any Doctor Who fan 5 years ago that Russell T Davies, David Tennant, Catherine Tate, Murray Gold, Stephen Moffat and Rachel Talalay would all be returning to Doctor Who, I mean, they'd have laughed in your face, let's be honest. And look what happened. And obviously, like with most theories, there are holes in it. Of course there are holes in it. You know, why would Susan have left Ruby in the first place? Why would she leave her child? But, you know, we all like to have a little bit of fun theorising about what's coming in the upcoming seasons of the shows. But let me know in the comments down below. Does our theory have merit, or do you think we're way off? We're cray-cray. We're cray-cray. What are we talking about? In the meantime, though, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.